Jesus freak here. So, I was able to hit Ollie's in 2 different locations today. Which is good since the Ollie's by me is usually blown out of things. So, I'm glad that I was able to get to the Ollie's in Cheektowaga and look for Bibles there. And I found this, which is the NKJV version of the Faithlife Illustrated Study Bible. Around me, I can only find this in NIV. Now, as much as I prefer the actual KJV, and I wish they'd bring it out in that, this is good enough. So, Nelson publishes this under the Zondervan label. These days, there's really no difference between the two. But for all intents and purposes, they're the same company. Which is to say, HarperCollins. They're not the same as the old Harper or the old Collins. Now, I've only looked at this a little bit. This is probably a later, and this is after they, I believe, edited down the preface so that it no longer criticizes the New International Version. Older editions of the New King James Version, the preface actually explicitly criticizes the NIV for being too loose of translation. Broad timeline. Now, it's kind of questionable as far as some of its notes. For example, it talks about the documentary hypothesis for the Pentateuch, which is no, just no. I mean, whatever you might believe, you don't want to mention documentary hypothesis in a study Bible. The study Bible should any Bible for consumption by believers should, if it mentions that at all, it should immediately reject it. Also, I kind of twitch at the use of the raw Hebrew form for the name. I tend to prefer to use the traditional English form. There's word studies marked by this alpha. There's copious notes. There's the biblical description of the cosmos in terms of basically an underwater terrarium. Which, I mean, I don't exactly believe that, but that is what the Old Testament understands it that way. The notes start to taper off as you go through Genesis a bit. They're still pretty copious, but there's discussion of what certain terminology more specifically is referring to, like the mercy seat. See that on the right. Diagrams is diagram of the tabernacle grounds. Diagrams are good. They help you conceptualize things. A lot of there's archaeological stuff here. There's the Stele of Adad. Um, there's articles here and there. There's an article about Christians keeping Old Testament law, and it's a good brief article here. More diagrams. These notes are mostly good. My main issue with the notes is that they take a somewhat liberal approach to authorship. There isn't any intertestamental section. Just goes from the Old Testament into the New. Like I said, the good thing about illustrations and diagrams is they help you visualize things. Chart about Jesus fulfilling Old Testament prophecy. Good note on Romans 13:1 about subjection to civil power. Good note on Romans 8:29. About foreknowledge and predestination. Did I use that word? Yes, I did. Prayers in Paul's letters. It gets a little bit wishy-washy about Pauline authorship of some of the epistles, like for example, oh, it's not. It doesn't. It doesn't absolutely say that Paul wrote Ephesians. It just says that he probably did. So that's going to lead me to wonder, oh, they're probably going to be really wishy-washy about Hebrews. Yeah, they try to take a sort of middle of the road approach from Hebrews. They don't they pretty much outright deny Pauline authorship of Hebrews, although they admit that it came from the same circles. Which, you know, as far as I'm concerned, Paul wrote Hebrews. Full stop. Good notes on faith versus works. So this is kind of a centrist study Bible. It's not really evangelical enough, but it's not like excessively liberal in most regards. There's a few places where I'm like, yeah. Table of money, weight, and measures. Uh, concordance, which I mean, concordance isn't going to work as well for an NKJV as it works for an actual KJV. But it's a pretty comprehensive one nonetheless. The maps are on normal paper, not on special paper. And I'm guessing they come from the people who did the Bible because they're not Zondervan's maps. Now, I hadn't mentioned this. Faithlife Bible comes from the people behind the Logos Bible software. Now, which I haven't personally used it, I understand, it's a really good program. And this is a good study Bible if you can get past its minor issues. For example, where it gets wishy-washy on traditional authorship. Also, since I mentioned going to Ollie's, I'll just bring this up. I mentioned in a previous video, I have a bunch of Bibles ready to give out to people who need them. If you need one, I have a pretty good assortment. And if you email me at fnjf@fnjesusfreak.com, I'll try to get back to you, see how I can help you out. I got a pretty good variety. It's getting to be an even bigger variety. Um, I got some Bibles specifically for a younger audience. I got some basic Bibles, Bibles for putting in a school bag, um, hardback Bibles, those that are going to last a while. So if you need something like that, let me know. Jesus freak out.